Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Collin Manley, and, well, it's happened. It started. It's getting in motion. Who knew all we were going to need was a Christmas break to get everything going? Now, there's a lot of free agents that have not signed yet. Let's put that out on the table first. But if you've been living underneath a rock recently, you might not have noticed that the San Diego Padres are going all in. And when it comes to this podcast, there is so much I want to talk about. I do want to start there. Now, don't worry. We're going to get you up to date on other news that's happened around the league. We're going to talk about all that, whether it's some moves, some signings, some trades. There's been other stuff that has happened, not just Padres related. But also, we're going to talk about the rumor mill. And these moves that have happened recently with the Padres are going to have a domino effect for some other moves to be happening. Some other players looking to get signed, some other teams looking to stay aggressive. And then I also want to talk about, well, the new year is coming, so new year, new me. What's it going to be? We have some players that really need to have a new me going into next season, and I want to talk about those few players. But I definitely want to start things off with the San Diego Padres and the moves that they have made. So as of the last couple days, they have been very aggressive, doing a lot of things. Most notably, recent trade acquisitions of Darvish and Blake Snell. Two pitchers to try to up their starting rotation. And it gets to be an interesting thing because with all of this happening, they don't have Mike Clevinger next year. They were the team that went all in on the trade deadline, trading for Mike Clevinger, pulling him away from the Indians, was a top-notch pitcher. But he's not going to be there next year. He's going to have surgery. He's going to be off. In 2 years from now will be when Clevinger is available. So the Padres are looking at their starting rotation and they're wondering, well, what can we do right now to up what we have? So, with that being said, the Padres went out and acquired Darvish and Blake Snell. And having conversations with this, it has been very interesting conversations because Darvish and Snell have a very unique opinion about them and a lot of baseball fans. Some people really love these moves. Some people are a little hesitant. Big thing having to deal with it, health. Okay, these guys have not always been there for a full season. And we did see some health with them last year, but obviously it was a 60-game slate. It was very much crunched down. So they're wondering, how much of this can you believe? Snell has had an injury history in the past. Darvish has missed some time. Also, with Darvish, you have to talk about the fact that he is 34 years old going into this next season. Obviously not very young, but I will say on the flip side of that, if there ever was a position that some players can weather the storm a little bit when it comes to age, starting pitchers, they seem to have it. I mean, look at Verlander, look at Scherzer. These guys are not young either. Sabathia lasted for a long time, was an effective, efficient pitcher. Like, it happens. These guys can manage and last longer than compared to playing any regular fielding position, okay? We don't have a lot of data that says one is necessarily better than the other when it comes to long-term success, but we have seen pitchers that have been able to succeed the older they get. So I'm not necessarily overly worried about that. But I want to break down these moves in the sense of, if I am in the Padres front office, I am the general manager there, what am I looking at as I make these decisions? We are in a very tough offseason, and it's very odd that we just saw somebody take on money in a time where a lot of teams lost money last year. I would say probably all teams lost some sort of income last year. So having somebody taking on money has just been very different because even with free agents, we're just not seeing moves happen right now. A lot of teams are in question mode. How many games are we going to play next year? When is our season going to start? What's ultimately going to be the end goal here? Are we going to play 162 games? There's a chance we might not. So the Padres going all in is very unique. But I think if you are someone in the Padres organization, you had to look at three very interesting points when it comes to your team and the future. The very first one, the obvious one, getting it out of the way. Are you able to compete this year? Well, look at this team. It's loaded. Your offense is phenomenal, okay? Machado, Tatis were literally, MVP candidates. Two of the best offensive players out there. Will Myers was able to get things back a little bit playing in the outfield. Eric Hosmer, when healthy, was solid. They got production out of other guys like Cronenworth, Grisham. They had production all over the place. And we also could talk about a guy they traded for recently in Tommy Pham, who battled injuries and really didn't play a whole ton last year, and he's going to be coming back. There is offense there, and they also went out and made a move to sign a KBO prospect in Hyesung Kim to come play potentially second base somewhere in the infield, who's a good bat as well. So offensively, this team has a lot going for them. They are going to be scoring a lot of runs next year. So, check one. You can compete with that. The next part to it, well, starting pitching. You now are going to roll out Yu Darvish, who was a top 3 Cy Young last year. You can tell me everything that you don't like about him in the past. You can say that he came off a bad year. I know that his contract was looked at as a very, very bad contract a couple years ago just because of the production. But last year, he was arguably a Cy Young. Arguably. 2 ERA, 8-3 on the year, was phenomenal for a Cubs team that really didn't give him that much offensive production. Okay? The Cubs were not that strong of a team. We're not going to pretend like he was playing on some juggernaut. No, that's not the case. He is going to get more help in San Diego. Blake Snell, who was also phenomenal for the AL champion Tampa Bay Rays. Okay, we saw a few years ago, 2018, a Cy Young season where he was lights out dominant. The year after, little up and down, injuries. But then last year, he was fine. He was great. And let's also talk about that, hey, his contract is kind of a steal considering if you are getting a 3 ERA pitcher and he is going to start 25 to 30 games for you, that's pretty solid considering the fact you're only paying him $11 million next year. Darvish, $22 million, obviously a high number, but just what he came off of last season, he might be worth it. So Darvish, Snell, Lamet, young guy who is great, Paddock, who a lot of people are excited about, Mackenzie Gore, who is someone that is still a top prospect for them, is also there to potentially come up in the near future. That's great. You are better than you were yesterday, the day before. Before these trades happened, your team got better. I don't think you can argue that Yu Darvish is not an upgrade over Zach Davies, who is the main player that right now on this roster you're replacing. And I know, I'm not going to sit here and go, it was Darvish for Davies. No, that wasn't the deal. Prospects were involved. I understand. But when we're making that swap into the lineup, you got better. Now let's also throw into the fact you got Blake Snell as well. If you're concerned about health, you're concerned about anything to deal with that, I get it. I understand. You have a point. But I can't always make trades with the thought that this kid's going to get hurt. If I have the medicals and I know that things are not looking good, different story. But both of these guys just came off of a pretty clean bill of health season and were pretty great. So let's make the moves. Let's make our team better. I like it. I have no problem with it. And now, that makes me see, one, can we contend? Yes. Check mark. We're good there. Okay. Next step. Did we deplete our farm? Well, no. It didn't happen. They actually sent out, quite a few prospects when it comes to looking at everything that happened. They sent out Owen Casey, an outfielder, Ismael Mina, shortstop Reggie Prasadio, and Irvin Santana. But that include with Zach Davies, we don't know who they are. They're all very young prospects, 17, 18, and 20 years old. But they weren't top prospects for the Padres. That's the crazy thing in all of this. And even with the Snell deal, they didn't send out too much. The prospect that was sent out was Luis Patino, catchers Francisco Mejia, Blake Hunt, and another pitching prospect for Blake Snell. Patino was the biggest thing they gave up, and he was one of their better pitching prospects. He was on the team last year. He actually was up and playing a little bit. But they kept Gore, who was their prized possession, and obviously he hasn't come up through the highest amount of the minors. He hasn't hit AAA quite yet. We didn't have a minor league season last year. He would have been there. But he was at their alternate site working. They feel good about him. So we add in Snell, and we really only sent out one top prospect. The Padres had a top 5 farm system coming into this season. Top 5 farm system. And in all reality, they gave up just about nothing and got back 2 high-level starters. That if they are healthy, things will be just fine. Okay, check number 2. We're competing and our farm is fine. We're not taking any hits there. But the third thing that you need to be looking at and need to be considering when you make these trades is, the farm is great when we talk about our future, but let's also talk about our future in the sense of, do we have a player on our team right now that we can't let go? Enter Fernando Tatis Jr. He's going to get a major contract when his time comes, and that time will get here faster than the Padres really want to admit. But let's talk about how this contract breaks out. He is earning a base salary of about pretty much nothing. Luxury tax salary is $575,000. Arbitration year next year is his first year of arbitration. And that's going to continue until 2024 when he can become an unrestricted free agent in 2025. Okay? That's interesting. Now let's look at the money that they just took on. Let's talk about it. Darvish, $22 million this year. $19 million in 2022. Contract is up in 2023, $18 million that year. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2024. So his $20 million average across that per year is gone before Tatis can even become a unrestricted free agent. So Darvish doesn't matter. No problem. Blake Snell, who really isn't making that much, $10 million, $12.5 next year in 2022, $16 it spikes up to in 2023. He's only going to be 30 years old, but then a free agent before Tatis can even hit unrestricted free agency. You might think, oh, God, what about players that they have on there? So Machado, we know, is going to be making big chunks of salary, $30 million a year until 2028. So that is one hurdle that you have. But we'll talk about the other guys. Will Myers, who's making $22.5 million. Well, he's going to make that $22.5 in 2022 as well. And then he has $20 million in his last year in 2023. But then the contract is done. So once again, another contract that will be up before they really have to worry about Tatis. And then the biggest one that actually has any type of implications on on Tatis is Hosmer. He has an opt-out after 2022. That's a player opt-out. Full no-trade clause, which is done after this season, so he can be traded anywhere. 2022, he's going to make $20 million. After that, it goes down to 13, 13, 13 from 2023 to 2025. Hosmer might believe he can get more than that and goes into the market to get it. Now, he's going to be 33, 34, 35 for those 3 seasons, so maybe not. We don't 100% know. But that literally tells me one season of Tatis Jr. into most likely a mega deal is going to have any factor with Hosmer. So they collected these contracts, took them in at this time, and ultimately it's going to have no effect on whether or not they want to give Tatis Jr. a major contract like Machado. Do I think it's smart to pay 2 guys that much money? No, not in baseball. Very problematic, I would say. And signing Machado that deal was a sign that they thought they'd be competing, and that's obviously the goal right now. And with Tatis developing as well as he has, it makes things difficult. You don't want to pay both. Will Machado be tradable down the line? Hard to say. Hard to say. Going to be difficult. But nothing that they did right now ruined any of the prospects of being able to sign Tatis down the line. Because Darvish, Myers, and Snell will all potentially be gone. Maybe if any of them sign extensions, maybe even Clevenger signs an extension. We don't know. This could go a lot of different directions. I mean, Danielson Lamet is in his first year of arbitration, so he'll be cheap for a few more years too. I looked at these deals and I just thought they were wins. I mean, you can hate the idea of Darvish and Snell thinking they're not going to be healthy. You can hate the idea of the money you just took on right now in a post-COVID season. I don't knock you on any of that. I get it. It makes sense. But I stand by it. The 3 things. Did we ruin our farm? Can we compete now? Did this mess with Tatis Jr. being signed? No. We checked all those boxes. We got better today, and we were able to keep our future intact. I think the Padres made big wins. I really did. And I applaud them for it because they need to bring the best that they can to compete with the Dodgers. Truly is. So hats off to the Padres getting our offseason really going. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some other news and noise around the league here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
It truly is a lot of fun to talk about everything that just happened with the Padres. I greatly enjoy it. A lot of fun. But because some moves were made, there's going to be some other, reaction moves, some other countermeasures that are going to happen. I'm waiting for the Dodgers. I mean, I truly am. They are going to be the team that I think strikes big next, at least. Because how do you counter a little pitching? Maybe some offense, maybe some pitching of your own. We'll see. There's a lot of ways that they could potentially go with it. But there are also other teams in the league that we need to talk about and get everyone caught up because there are some more news and noise around the league. And with that started, another trade that actually just kind of came through had to do with the Philadelphia Phillies and needing some help to their bullpen because let's not pretend. They needed it, all right? 2021, they didn't want to wait to it. The Phillies are making moves now. Tuesday afternoon, they acquired left-hander Jose Alvarado from the Rays in a 3-team deal with the Dodgers. The Phillies send right-hander Garrett Cleavinger to the Dodgers as part of this deal. Alvarado is 25 years old, one of those hard-throwing relievers at the back end, that stable of horses that throw 98+. And I like the idea. The Phillies really need to bounce back, and they're counting on him being healthy. Had some injury issues the last couple of years, but when your bullpen was as bad as it was in 2020, it's time to make moves. So in 70 appearances in 2018, Alvarado had a 2.39 ERA through 70 appearances, striking out 80, walking 29. That was in 64 innings of work. Then had a 4.8 ERA and 35 appearances, 19, missing a month because of a personal matter that was happening in Venezuela, making a couple trips to the IL. A lot of issues going on in 2019. 9 appearances for the AL champs in 2020, having some problems with a shoulder injury. Now, we know that he is great, and he can throw very hard. His two-seam fastball averages about 97 miles per hour. Seasons before that was up towards almost 98. Throws a cutter, throws a curveball. He had 15 saves from 2018 to 2019, so he can pitch at the end of your bullpen. If healthy, I'm guessing best case scenario, that's really what the Phillies are hoping for, that he can be in those positions. All in all, you're attacking your weakness, and that's what you need to be doing. So make sure that you are going after everything that you can to help fix, because otherwise that Phillies team, they would have been in the playoffs. They would have been there. There's no question about it. Going back to the Padres real quickly, we mentioned it a little bit before, but I want to touch upon it again. Infielder Hae-Sung Kim has agreed to join the Padres, and this is coming from some sources at MLB.com. Not yet confirmed by the team. A physical is going to be the big part of this, and nobody really knows what the money is right now. But it gets interesting because he's going to be versatile. I don't necessarily think he's going to be locked in at second base, at shortstop, maybe even third base. He could play really at any position. In the Korean Baseball League, he batted .294. Going to be a good player there. He mainly played shortstop and third base, so third base might be the best spot for him that we see him play. But again, he'll be flexible. He'll be in a lot of different positions. And it brings up the idea of maybe even second base. And I wonder where Cronenworth really fits in all of this, because Tatis and Machado have been that left side. Maybe there's plans for some of these other players. I don't necessarily know. And maybe even Cronenworth slides to the outfield is potential there. There's a lot that could happen, and it just seems like it's a great depth move. They're taking a chance on a player that hit 30 home runs and 24 doubles in 138 games last year in the KBO. So he was posted up in December, and the Padres were front runners pretty early on. So this move getting done is no huge surprise, but just looks like the rich getting richer, and that's something very interesting to see. Padres, man, they're going all in to become the best team that they possibly can be. Going to a former champion that we had, the Washington Nationals, their GM has not ruled out a reunion with a very big-time staple in their franchise, Ryan Zimmerman. The team, the Nationals, just recently acquired Josh Bell in a big trade with the Pirates. Was a steal of a trade in my mind. Pirates fans, this is a whole nother conversation. I feel for you guys. You traded away a guy that was an all-star not too long ago for pennies, and just bothers me. I think there's a lot of teams that should have been all over this. This is all that the asking price was going to be for Bell, especially when you have club control and he's relatively young still. But Bell, being a switch hitter, 28 years old, is going to play first base, most likely. And he's going to be a middle-of-the-order batter for the Washington Nationals. Before Bell was there, and even last season, Zimmerman, who sat out the 2020 year, was playing some first base and was a little more sparingly, was coming off the bench at times too. He may have a possible return, and this gets to be a tricky situation because if he does decide to play, he hasn't played anywhere other than the Nationals, so that's something that's going to weigh heavily probably on his mind. Do I really want to go to another team? Do I really want to play elsewhere? Am I going to get more innings? What's completely in his mind? Nobody knows. And he's 36 years old. So he's definitely at the back end of his career. This would be his 16th season in the league. And again, all 15 before that were with the Nationals. So it's interesting to think about. I don't necessarily know if the Nationals are the right fit right now, especially if we don't have a DH, which is what it seems like. But the last time we did see him, batted .257, 6 home runs, for the 2019 World Series champions. So he is going to give you something. He's not an awful player, but it's just going to be finding a position to place him, because I don't think he's going back to third base anytime soon. And it's not like Bell's going to slide over there. He is meant to be your first baseman. Lot to happen there. A Zimmerman reunion would most likely mean to me he has agreed that, yeah, I'm going to be kind of a bench guy. Going to get some pinch hit opportunities. I'll play on some off days for some guys. That's just what I'm expecting. And, at this point in his career, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. And that's okay. That is totally okay. So whatever Zimmerman wants, whatever he truly is aspiring for, hey, hope he gets it. I mean, if he retires, he walks out a champion as well, so not too bad there. Staying with the Pirates, though, outfielder Gregory Polanco broke a bone in his right wrist playing winter ball in the Dominican Republic. This came from the Pirates on Saturday, was a small non-displaced fracture in his hand, and he's going to be immobilized for some time moving forward. They didn't say necessarily how the injury occurred, but Polanco is 29 years old, is expected to be ready for the start of spring training. No thoughts that it's going to hold him back all that well. Polanco batted .153 with 7 homers and 22 RBIs during the 2020 season after testing positive for the coronavirus during the team's summer camp. Polanco was hitting .197 with 2 homers in 21 games in the Dominican League. So having his struggles kind of continue from the MLB season, it looks like. And he was a guy that could be a potential trade target from just the past, but he really is not upping his value. And just seeing with what, the Pirates got for Josh Bell, I feel like they'd have to potentially give him away at this point. Because before the 2020 season, he batted roughly in that 250 range for average. Not too bad. He showed that he could top off around that low 20s in home runs and give you some RBIs, some good production in the outfield. But if he doesn't bounce back, maybe the Pirates are just going to hold on to him and hope he can become a great trade candidate for them. Maybe next season is the plan. So we'll see where that goes with Polanco moving forward. With a couple more moves around the league, we have some pitchers selecting some new clubs, as the Texas Rangers are getting in on the action as they sign right-handed Japanese pitcher Kohei Arihara, who is going to be agreeing to a 2-year deal, which is in the $6 million to $7 million range, getting $3.6 million in 2021 and $2.6 in 2022, and can earn performance bonuses each year depending on how many starts he has in the season. Now, the 28-year-old was 8-9 with a 3.46 ERA in 20 starts in the pandemic-shortened season in Japan. He led the Pacific League with 3 complete games and was second in total innings. It's kind of looking to be a depth move at this point, maybe some potential upside. He was Rookie of the Year in the Pacific League in 2015, career high 15 wins in 2019, tied for the overall lead in Japan. Second in ERA in 24 starts in that 2019 season as well. Overall career numbers a little bit above average, 60 wins, 50 losses, 3.74 ERA in his all-time career. And it's just a move for the Rangers. They don't have a lot of high expectations for next season, I would imagine. So we're going to see if we can pull something here. It's a short, very inexpensive deal. Can we see if the 2019 version of him is something real over here in the MLB? I don't mind it. I think it's a smart move. No real problems with it. Hopefully, the Rangers are onto something, because that truly has to be the plan for them as they try to get anything that resembles a future moving forward built in that brand new lovely stadium for the Texas Rangers. And lastly, the Royals have signed Irvin Santana to a minor league contract on Tuesday, taking a shot on someone who didn't pitch at all in 2020. Santana put together a pretty good big league career, 15 seasons. One of them was with the Royals in 2013, 3.24 ERA over 32 starts after being acquired in a trade with the Angels in that 2013 season. Santana then left as a free agent, signed with the Braves. Career at 38 years old, 149 wins, 127 losses, ERA of about 4.09 in 387 games. All-Star all the way back in 2008. But all in all, this is just another one of those upside moves. And the Royals have been an interesting team this offseason. They've made a couple signings that are going to be competitive, veteran guys. And again, it's only a minor league contract, so there's no guarantee that Irvin even makes the big league roster. But if he comes in and he shows something and he can be a back-end starter for the Rays, why not? Taking that risk. So the Rays trying to be competitive. Trying to be. In that AL Central, it's going to be interesting. I still think, obviously, that the White Sox are the class and they're going to be the team to beat and everything. But, as of right now, the Indians seem to have taken a step back, and Lindor's most likely leaving. The Twins have lost Nelson Cruz at the moment. He could resign. We don't know. And Rosario is gone, putting in a new prospect in their hopes that he's going to be better, but the Twins haven't necessarily taken a step forward either. So the Royals just seeing what they can put together, trying to compete, trying to put together the best team possible, a good product on the field. Why not? Why not? They got some young players, too, that they also want to see develop. A lot happening there. So that's going to be it for News and Noise, getting you caught up on everything going on around the league. And there's been a lot of news. I had to narrow it down. We're going to try to stay as relevant and recent as possible as we talk about it. But we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we need to talk about the rumor mill, because with the big moves that the Padres have made, there's going to be some other rumors and discussions and topics thrown out there coming up here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
The rumor mill, it just keeps on churning. It's never going to stop. This offseason, we've had so many bits of information. Rumors just keep flying through. This player's talking to this team is interested in this. So much going on. But now with some actual moves happening, some trades, whether it be, the Padres' recent trades, the moving of Josh Bell, things are finally getting in motion. So we're going to start and hear some things potentially come more to a head as the offseason continues to move forward. And the biggest thing that's going to catch my attention right away, and I saw this, I thought of this immediately, with the Padres trading for Darvish and Blake Snell, there truly is one team they're trying to chase. They're trying to go after the Dodgers. Let's be honest. Let's talk about it. And look at the way that they're making these moves. They think that adding some pitching to counter the great Dodgers offense is the move right now. So, with that happening, what do the Dodgers think? Now, it was reported that the Dodgers aren't necessarily looking to do a counter punch, and this is coming from Dodgers reporter David Vasa. And while the counter punch is not necessarily the idea, it doesn't mean they don't have something up their sleeve. And in a recent interview, Vasa also said that he is hearing that DJ LeMahieu is on the radar. They wanted to add a right-handed bat, and it just makes sense. There's reporting that there are some talks. Now, does this mean a deal is happening? We pushing towards it? We don't know. But it would be a good fit as a team in the Dodgers that just lost Kiki Hernandez and Justin Turner, guys that played at second and third base. The two likely position spots that we could see LeMahieu fitting in at are open. and they're willing to explore options. And it looks like as of right now, Justin Turner is kind of looking at all of his options as well. And it appears that Kiki Hernandez is also looking at other alternatives, as there's been some rumors of the Blue Jays and Red Sox being interested. So don't be surprised if LeMahieu is a guy that could slide in there to fill one of those roles. And it's not to say that the Dodgers don't have options. I mean, Max Muncy is still there. Gavin Lux is a guy that hasn't necessarily gotten his call up to play second base full time yet. There are still options on the roster for the Dodgers, so they're not going to be desperate. So that idea of a counterpunch not potentially being there, yeah, it's still likely that they may try to do things in-house. But, we don't know necessarily how all of these GMs operate, these owners operate, because if owners put a little pressure, maybe the owner of the Dodgers goes, ooh, that's interesting. The Padres are making a couple of decisions right here. Maybe we need to counter and make something to answer back. Who knows? But there are definitely some discussions happening with LeMahieu. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition at any point. But another team that also is interested in getting a big bat in their lineup is going to be the Washington Nationals. Now, good for them to fill that hole in getting Josh Bell for a cheap trade. Cheap trade. I still can't get over that one. It just bothers me. But it's not believed that they are done just yet. MLB Network insider John Heyman tweeted that the Nationals are continuing to look for someone to add to that middle of the lineup now that includes Bell and Juan Soto. So they're looking for more. Not a crazy thing. Bell is a cheap contract. They're not paying much. They got a nice upgrade. They really didn't lose anything in this whole situation. So they still have money to spend potentially if they want to go out there. There were talks before of Chris Bryant. The Cubs look really like they're selling right now. Cut Schwarber, traded Darvish. Is Chris Bryant going to be more available than we thought? He was connected to the Nationals a while ago. The Nationals tried to play it down a little bit like it's not happening right now. But now that Darvish has been traded, I think this is going to be brought up again. And there's a lot of free agents. I mean, if they want a big-time bat, Marcell Ozuna is still out there. George Springer is still out there. LeMahieu is out there. JT Realmuto, we heard about those connections right away as well. There's a lot of different directions that they could go there. So I wouldn't be surprised. And they might even go a cheaper route and try to get a bunch of maybe lesser expensive and try to get more depth. Maybe that's looking at Rosario, Schwarber, Justin Turner like we talked about previously. There's a lot of different directions that could possibly go. So it's something to definitely keep our eye on moving forward. Well, we just saw two pitchers move, so we got to talk about some other pitchers. Well, the deadline for Japanese pitcher Tomoyuki Sugano to sign is coming. That's January 7th. And it is believed that it's come down to about 5 suitors at the moment. And this is coming from MLB.com. The Blue Jays, Padres, Giants, Mets, and Red Sox. We may be able to dump the Padres out, but if they're all in at this point, would I truly be surprised if they wouldn't get involved on another pitcher? I mean, remember, Clevenger is not here until next season. Now, very unlikely that Sugano signs a 1-year deal, but it's something to bring up as a guy who had a 1.97 ERA in 20 starts last year in the Nippon Professional Baseball League. So he is going to be a hot commodity. Now, we talked about the DJ LeMahieu for the Dodgers thing before, but with no real true indication that he's signing anywhere, the Yankees are starting to get a little more confident that waiting things out is going to be the best move when it comes to signing LeMahieu. And this is coming from the New York Post. The strategy that they think they needed to go with seems to be working, since most other teams are not willing to make a lot of moves, especially for position players. We're not seeing that happen right now. The Yankees and other big spenders are waiting to set the market. They don't want to be the first team. So that means LeMahieu, Realmuto, Bauer, Springer, all of these guys, yes, they're trying to get their first contract in a sport that doesn't have a salary cap, but try to convince these players that there's really no salary cap, because I would bet you they would argue, yeah, maybe not in place, but these teams have a set number in mind. That's why these deals are not getting done very quickly. This is happening in baseball right now. And the Yankees want to stay under the $210 million luxury tax. in 2021. They have roughly 30 to 35 million to spend there. And they are going to plan to use it, whether it's LeMahieu or not. But since they are waiting right now, they may be looking at a more discounted LeMahieu because nobody just wants to make that deal. It's a game of chicken right now. It's a stare-off between players and teams. I'm sure the players want one thing. The teams are saying, we're going to offer this. And they're waiting for the first one to budge. The first player who signs the big deal is going to set the bar for all of these other contracts. So it's a big game right now. There's a lot that could be going on in all of this. And we're seeing a lot of teams that are just not 100% sure which direction they want to go. We're seeing, like, the Dodgers, like, they have the money to spend. They could spend on Trevor Bauer. They could spend on LeMahieu, which Bauer would be an interesting thing. That connection has been made recently as well, as he really has kept the door open to go anywhere. And with these two pitching moves happening, maybe the Dodgers answer back in that route of pitching as well. As MLB Network insider Joel Sherman has talked about, the Dodgers are still in play for all of these big free agents. And that is including Bauer. So that's something that's very, very interesting to watch, especially with recent transactions that have happened. Moving over to some other players, not necessarily the big names, but still interesting players. We talked about it a little bit, but the Red Sox are showing strong interest in Kiki Hernandez, a free agent utility man. And this is coming from Mass Live's Chris Cotillo. Boston has a young set of players that they have competing at second base, none of which are necessarily guarantees to take that spot. And I would think, just looking at Boston's farm system, there's hopes that down the line, maybe not too far, but coming up in the future, that their shortstop, or their second baseman, I should say, is going to be Jeter Downs in the future. Hernandez has been connected to the Red Sox. He's been connected to the Twins. Likely going to be a second baseman. So if he's going to Boston, that's most likely the case. He's not going to be playing all over the place like he has shown. Right-handed batter. He could platoon in the outfield if needed be, because they do have a couple lefties out there in Benintendi and Verdugo. Overall, it's just kind of a filler. And I don't mind this. You're just adding to your depth. Offense wasn't necessarily a problem, but you're trying to fill a little gap there. And something that's also another connection, we heard about this before with Rosario. Hernandez played for the Puerto Rican team in the 2017 World Baseball Classic. Alex Cora was a part of that team. Okay? Not player, but he's a part of the whole thing. So there's a connection there. There definitely is a connection there. So don't rule it out. But when it comes to long staples in the league, we need to talk about Mr. Yadier Molina and if he's actually going to truly return to the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, I can't imagine someone else being behind that plate working with the pitchers in St. Louis. He's just been there for so long. It gets even harder to think about him in another uniform, although this happens. You can't be surprised by this anymore, even though it's going to look really weird if it does. But players move towards the end of their career. We see it across all sports. These stories of guys being long time, one franchise, it's hard. It doesn't really happen all that often anymore. So Yadier Molina and the Cardinals are moving at a very slow pace trying to get things together. And it gets even harder when you are looking at these quote-unquote legacy players. And it's just something that is difficult. I'm sure Molina thinks his value is at a certain number as well. And catcher is a very important position. He's looking for a 2-year deal. And it seems like the Cardinals are not willing to go there. But other teams that are looking for a catcher, any type of help behind the plate, we've heard about the Yankees being connected, the Mets no longer, but the Angels have been connected, Padres have been connected. If the 2-year deal thing is going to be what absolutely nixes the deal, some of these other teams might jump in on that. It's hard because Molina obviously is getting older, up in age, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible for teams. They might be smart with how much he spends time behind the plate. He might get some more breaks. There might be a lot going on there. Might be a platoon behind there. But they're truly going to want him for those big series, those big games. A lot of different directions this could go. I truly don't want to see him leave the Cardinals. I really don't, because he's just been there for so long. It's going to be a difficult thing, but again, I got to live in the reality of what is sports today. It's just you don't see a lot of these guys stick around. It doesn't happen. Like if Ryan Braun truly is done, that's the one up here that's interesting. His whole career had been in Milwaukee. He's a free agent. They didn't pick up his option. Could he return? Yeah, on a cheap deal, possibly. But is his time done in Milwaukee? Is he going to go play somewhere else? It's the same feel with Molina. That's two big-time NL Central guys that could be wearing some new threads next year. Be very interesting and awkward to see for sure. But that's what we have for the rumor mill. There was a lot more noise going out there, but a lot of it came to fruition. We were hearing the Snell and Darvish stuff, and then it happened. It happened. So that news is done. So getting you updated on everything else that's been going on. We're going to take one last quick break, and then we're going to talk about, hey, new year, who in baseball needs to have a new me in the 2021 season here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Whenever I hear that phrase, new year, new me, I always think about the guys that go to the gym that think they're going to be getting into a great routine and changing their entire life and getting it all together. And that's why if you are someone with a gym membership, you know all too well, the first month of January, it's tough. It's tough. There's so many people there. You don't want to be there with all these people. You just want to get to your machines, get in, get out, do your workout. Obviously, with the whole COVID thing going on, that's most likely not going to be as realistic as in the past. But everyone's always trying to set those New Year's resolutions and actually meet them. Now, that would be a good question for another day. How many people actually meet these things? How many people actually stick to their New Year's resolution? What is the amount of time until this thing is actually broken? I would guess that it lasts maybe a month. Am I overshooting it on that? I might be. I mean, I've never truly set one myself. I know I've probably had the thought in my mind like, hey, I'm gonna change this about myself. I'm gonna go do this. This is gonna be something that I'm gonna be glad I do. But do I ever really follow through with it? No, not really. I mean, I could set this bar at any time of the year, so I don't need to necessarily do it with a New Year's. But ramble aside, there are some players in the MLB that truly need to have a bounce back season and be a new me. I need to be better for my team. So I wanted to talk about every single team's new year, new me. Now, some of these aren't necessarily guys that had the worst seasons of all time. I understand that we should look at a lot of players that have had probably a very down career year, but there's a lot of guys that can necessarily up themselves and still be the player that maybe a franchise was looking for. And that's I kind of needed to lead into that because I want to start with my first one, with the AL East, the Toronto Blue Jays, and Vlad Guerrero. Now, obviously, 2020, he wasn't awful. He wasn't this very, very bad player. But when I say the new year, new me, I want you to get better, okay? He is someone that needs to become that superstar, needs to break out. It's fun when you're all the young prospects together, slowly getting better with each other. I understand, that the Blue Jays are not necessarily like championship or bust next year. I know. But you only get to be the fun young prospects for so long before we start going, all right, the all-out production needs to be there. And I think this is the season where we need to see Vlad take that jump and show, yeah, I am that top prospect. I am that guy here. It's me. It's me. So, hey, Vlad, take that jump. Let's see it happen out of you. Baltimore Orioles, how about John Means? Now, velocity was up for him in this season, up to almost 94 miles per hour, left-handed pitcher, but took a big step back, 4.53 ERA. Now, he was a Rookie of the Year award runner-up not too long ago, and the uptick with velocity on top of that, the Orioles really would like to see some pitching help come their way, and Means could be that guy. At 27 years old, 10 starts last year, but a 2-4 record, that's not it. That's not it. Not too long ago, he was looking very promising in 2019. 12-11 on a very bad Baltimore team. So, can he bounce back? Can he be that guy? I think the Orioles would be very, very happy with that. The Tampa Bay Rays, well, let's talk about Austin Meadows. Now, in 2019, MVP potential status. He was there. Not very effective in 2020. And 2019 levels, a full year, he was going to be 33 home runs, 144 OPS plus. Pretty great. If he can give that to the Rays again, we are talking about a very helpful player at just 25 years old. I mean, former top 10 pick of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we'll see what ends up happening there. I like the idea of him taking a step forward. So hopeful for that one. Boston Red Sox, Jd Martinez. All right, now, what he's going to be in 2020, I'm not 100% sure. Is he the DH? Is he playing up? Can he just bounce back? His slugging percentage took a massive hit in 2020. He needs to come back to being that MVP level and play out that contract. He could be traded elsewhere if this happens. But I think the Red Sox see a lot of value in their offense staying strong. It's going to be the pitching that obviously they need to get better. But you need to show that your guy who you stuck with, who you think is your stud, now that Mookie Betts is gone, can Martinez and Devers, can that be it? We're hoping there. We're hoping there. We'll see what happens with that whole situation. For the New York Yankees, if Gary Sanchez is sticking around, you got to figure it out, man. You were such a strong home run hitting presence when you came up through the Yankees organization. But the last few years, ugh. Can you be that guy? If you solidify things behind the plate, I worry about your defense. I worry about your defense a lot. But even if you have the offensive production come back, Gary, you would be such a valuable asset to the New York Yankees. So I just think that one's too easy. The Indians, I could lock this down to just a singular player, but I want to open this up to the entire Indians offense. Hey guys, can you all just bounce back? Can you give us something? New year, new me. Can you come out and be the team that you truly need to complement your pitching? An uptick from everybody, obviously, optimistic thinking. But you need to give something to that pitching staff that just absolutely carried you last year. I mean, I don't see any other way. You guys need to be the new me, and that needs to be in a lot of different places, for sure. Kansas City Royals. This one was a tough one as well. And with a team that has low expectations, let's take a guy that's been really good for him and make him just better. Whit Merrifield, 31 years old. Now, he was good in 2020. He's a good player, great player. But this actually might have been one of his worst career years. 764 OPS, it's lowest since 2016. And I think it just shocks me every time I look at it. He's going to be 32 years old. I don't know why the Royals didn't trade him last year at the deadline. He was one of those guys that it was a name I was watching. But he needs to have that little bit of a uptick in production and potentially become, a movable player to contender that really moves the needle. And I think a lot of teams would be interested in Merrifield if they had opportunity. He's a flexible player. You can put him in a lot of spots. And all in all, he's still really good. But I'd like to see that little uptick for him. I think that would be nice. Tigers, new year, new me. I'm not putting the pressure on them, but hey, let's get those young prospect pitchers up there doing well. And I'm gonna look in particular. Let's look at Casey Mize. He is the one that the Tigers are overly excited about, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. I think that he has the potential to be a very great top-end starter. Struggled last year, but he's a young pitcher getting his first taste of major league experience. It all makes sense. I get it. But if he comes back as a new player, the rebuild in Detroit is going to look even better, especially with all the moves they've made, bringing in a new manager and everything. I like what they have. I like what they have. So let's see. Mize, can you take that step? New year, new me. Be that guy. Would be all about it. The White Sox, Yoan Moncada. And everything went well for the White Sox last year. Really good feeling. And Moncada looked like he was going to be a star in 2019. But 2020 things just never really got going. And he had COVID-19. Right now, he should be his best player. Chris Sale went to the Red Sox, was a big part of a World Series team. Yoan Moncada, it's your turn to show up and show that you were also a major part of this trade. And you are going to be the guy that helps take the White Sox on the next step. They have a lot of talent. They've made a lot of great moves. Your turn. Your turn. New year, new me. The Twins, last team in that AL Central, Jorge Polanco. Now, I more am doing this for his sake that the Twins have been looking into upgrading at the shortstop position, if you can call it that. I mean, batted .260. He's one of those steady, reliable players. He's been fine for the Twins his entire career. But if he doesn't do a little bit better, it just seems like he's going to be a guy that they potentially try to replace and move on from, which is tough to see. Tough to see. Joe Adell for the Angels. High prospect. Come on, man. We want to get you to be better at this. Hitting 161. I think the Angels were probably thinking a lot more was going to happen there. So we'll see. Athletics. Now, this one is a little tough, but I want to see Chapman take the next step up. There's going to be a lot of players that I don't know if they're going to be back on this team. So I'm going to go with the steady guy that is there and see, hey, can you take the next step? Can you be better? Again, these aren't all going to be fair in the sense of guys that had down seasons. We need to talk about some of the players that just need to take that step up and be better. Astros, though, a guy that needs to be better from the start of the season, Jose Altuve. All right, very down year. Things got better as the postseason showed up, but he also had a lot of postseason blunders when it came to errors. You got to be that rock. There's going to be a lot of questions around the Astros, especially if some guys don't return. You need to be that rock. So let's look there. The Mariners, Evan White. Positive for him. Just won a Gold Glove. Negative for him. You can't play first base and hit 176. Unless if you are bringing some absolute massive power numbers, but I don't even know what power numbers you'd have to bat 176 and it'd be okay. Just, you need to turn it around, man. Texas Rangers, Joey Gallo. I thought he was going to get traded. I really did at the deadline. I had a gut feeling. 181 batting average, not many home runs. Are we running to the point where we're going to have some ship sail on his franchise star potential? We've talked about Gallo a lot. He's been a guy that could be traded, could be moved. He's a high prospect. Well, he's here now, and he needs to be the guy in the Rangers. And we don't necessarily know what the future is for that team. It could start with him. It really could start with him. Moving on to the National Leagues, well, the Braves, Ozzie Albies. So, he's supposed to be the guy that pairs up with Acuna, and he's great. Well, struggled last year. 491 OPS against lefties. He's only 23, though. So I have a lot of faith that he can come back, but we need a bounce-back season out of him. I think he's someone that could be a lot better. Now, 270 obviously is not the worst. But with that said, he only played in 29 games, so being healthy might be the big part in him being the player that we truly want to see. The Marlins, Jazz Chisholm, one of those top prospects, all right? He's coming up the pipeline, one of the young guys. He didn't contribute a whole lot when it comes to last year. He only played in 21 games, but a 161 batting average. He struggled at the plate. 22-year-old guy that we're excited about. Not as much pressure as some of these other guys as well. The Marlins were a surprise team. I don't think a lot of people expect them to be that great this year, but if we can get a bump when it comes to whatever the team is going to be, I like it. The Mets, I'm going to go with Stroman. You sat out last year. Your choice. It's fine. No problem. But then you took a almost $20 million qualifying offer. I think you need to show you're worth that money this year. Going to come back healthy, which is good. Really need to show that you are worth it all. The Phillies, again, I could look at a lot of different players here, but I'm going to go widespread here. Hey, bullpen. You got to be better. New year, hopefully way new me on that one. You should have been in the postseason last year. Should have. But if your bullpen didn't stink, I mean, they could have been competing for the East. They really could have. So, tough one there for the Phillies. Moving on to the Nationals. Hey, Steven Strasburg. I just want healthy Strasburg back. That guy was so good in 2019. It was crazy. And then he gets a fat contract. Deserved. But injury issues. And we're back to this. I want to get away from it. Let's get away from it. So Strasburg, I would love to see it. Come back healthy. The idea of Strasburg, Scherzer, and Corbin again, let's see that. Let's see that go. Added belt. Nationals, they're going to be a sneaky team. Fun team for me to watch next year. National League Central, Brewers, easy. Christian Yelich, you can't hit 205 next year. Sorry. Didn't know that was possible considering what you did the 2 years before. Easy. Moving on from that one. Cardinals. I want to say an offensive player here. I really do. But I'm going to go with Jack Flaherty. He was disappointing. A lot of people thought he could be a Cy Young. 4.91 ERA for the young pitcher. Can't be doing that. At 25, we thought this guy was it. 11-8 in 2019. Looked solid. Looked very solid, and we thought it was going to be the next step forward. Had an under 3 ERA. Just buried this last year. So we need to see that jump that we were expecting. That's what we need from Flaherty. Cubs, you take your pick here. It's any of the people that are going to stay. I think Javi Baez is staying next year, no question about it. So he needs to come back because he was an MVP-type player as well. 203 batting average, not going to cut it. I don't know if the Cubs are necessarily going to extend any of these guys, but if there's one that I would feel like you have to, Baez would be the one, but he's scary considering the production that he didn't have last year. So we'll see where things, potentially change there, but Baez, you should be on the up and up. Pirates, man, just everyone. Let's figure it out. Can I pick the front office? Don't sell your all-star players for nothing. There, I'm moving on. I'm wiping my hands of the Pirates. The Reds, there's a lot of guys that in free agents that they signed that would really be nice. I could talk about Sonny Gray in, the second half of the season, not as good as his first half. I could talk about Stakas, Castellanos. But I'm going to go with Eugenio Suarez. And while he was getting better as the season went on, he's supposed to be that just solid offensive production third base. And he wasn't. He falls in that list of guys that really struggled in 2020, and that's just not what we expected. He's a 40 home run guy potentially in a normal season. So we need to see him bouncing back. 29 years old, he's just a big bat. Hit 49 home runs in 2019. We need him to come back to that. NL West, Diamondbacks, Madison Bumgarner. Hey, this team was a disappointment last year. You got a fat contract. You got to be better than a 6.48 ERA. Like 2.8 home runs per 9 innings. Ouch. Ouch. Bumgarner, that's just he's that guy. We talked about it before about how players leave their teams and then it's just hard. Is this it for Bumgarner after his long great career with the Giants? He leaves and now like just falls apart in a different organization. I don't like that. Tough. Dodgers, that team is strong. A lot of things. I want to look at the bullpen, at the back end in particular. We have a closer there who needs a little help. But I'm going to go Gavin Lux. You are the high prospect. You are the guy we're supposed to be excited about. 175 batting average. Not it. You're going to have an opportunity at second base here potentially. Even if they go sign somebody, you have a potential opportunity to be the guy. This is your opportunity. Got to be new year. Got to be new me. The Giants, Joey Bart. Played half the season last year. Some obvious positives. He's a high prospect. 111 plate appearances, no home runs, and only 3 walks to 41 strikeouts. Was rough. Was very rough. Bart needs to be the strong guy with the return of Posey. The Giants could get a just bump on this team in-house, and they're going to need it competing in the NL West. The Padres, hey, with everything great they've done, let's look at a guy on their roster who underachieved. Tommy Pham. Tough year. Tested positive for COVID. Broke a bone in his hand. And he had a stabbing incident in the offseason. Expected to make a full recovery. He needs to be more of a positive staple in the organization. They traded for you, man, to be a big part of this. Needs to step it up. And for the Rockies, man, I want to look at their front office as well. But I talk a lot about Arenado and the trade prospects and everything that's happened there. So let's just put a little pressure on him to say, hey, you need to bounce back. This might have been one of his worst seasons last year, and now he's a great player. A lot of great things have happened for Nolan Aronado, and I don't want to bash him at all because his career is awesome. 250 worst batting average. Okay. Home runs only 8, 26 RBIs. You look at all the numbers, and they were all down. But we know what he can bounce back to, so he needs to bounce back to be that player, especially if he wants to be in any considerations to be traded. We've talked about the contract implications. We've beat that one to down to the ground. We need to just move on from that, but Arenado needs to have a bounce back season. So that's going to be it. That's my New Year's, new me. A lot of guys. Every team has one. Hopefully, a lot of these guys can execute and come through. But that's going to be it for me here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I want to thank you once again for downloading and listening. It means a great deal. If you have the opportunity, would love it if you could leave a positive review. Anything that happened here, do you got a guy that you think needs to have an upgrade, new year, new me? Maybe you have a different idea on the Padres moves. Would love to hear it. Means a lot. Great deal. So once again, thank you. Signing off. I'm Collin Manley here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.